Hey everyone, welcome back to Breathe More. I am excited for this conversation because today we're going to be talking about nutrition and food. And I have a special guest today with us. Her name is Nicole Reilly, and she specializes in helping empower women to take charge of their health and well being by being conscious of what they're eating and helping them make some lifestyle changes to support the transformation that they're looking for. Nutrition is something that I've been really passionate about, but it's not something that I really talk about. I was looking back because actually I didn't go to school for this, but I did go to a community college for 2 years in 2011 to learn more about how nutrition impacts our body, because at the time, my partner had been just diagnosed with an autoimmune disease, with Graves' disease, which affects your thyroid. And the information that we were getting from the doctors were not helpful. Basically, with Graves, you lose a lot of weight, and he was getting really skinny. And literally, his doctor said, just eat a bunch of ice cream. And we were both like horrified. We're like, what the fuck? Like, literally, that's your advice? I'm like, no, there has to be something else. And so I started to learn more about foods and how they impact us. And then I've been really curious to learn more about how food impacts our mental health as well. And I feel like people don't really know that what they're consuming is not actually food. And Nicole does an amazing job at giving information on Instagram where basically I feel like you're pulling back the curtain. And through humor and through your beautiful personality, you're just letting us know, like, hey, this isn't really coffee what you're drinking. This is a cup full of sugar with a little bit of caffeine. So, Nicole, I'm curious to know how you got into this whole nutrition and food, and what is your story?
Well, first, thanks for having me. So, it all started almost 7 years ago now, actually. I just started getting these random symptoms, and I just had no idea what they were and why they weren't going away. And I ended up getting a colonoscopy, and they said I had Crohn's disease. So, of course, when you're in the doctor's office and they're telling you what it is, you're like, okay, I know nothing about that. And they literally are like, okay, here, go on some medicine. Bye.
Isn't it shocking how, like, you get a diagnosis, autoimmune, and there's no support? Like, it's just take a pill and you'll be fine. So obviously you didn't just take that advice. So what led you to, I don't know, like do research, or like what happened after that?
Yeah. So, of course, they immediately recommend medicine. And I just had this gut feeling that I didn't want to go on medicine. I was only 24 at the time. And I was like, I don't want to be on medicine for the rest of my life because that's literally the only advice they give you. So I ended up finding this book, and it told me like all about how diet had a big impact on healing your Crohn's. Well, healing it, like getting you into remission. And I went down the rabbit hole from there. Like, I started to look into ingredients. I started to be way more focused on what I eat.
Because what was
And
your diet like before that?
basically, I always thought I was healthy, but after doing so much research, I realized that I definitely was not as healthy as I thought. And basically, it all comes down to how much fruit and vegetables and meat you're eating, but it's always the quality that people don't understand. And I realized that I probably wasn't eating enough vegetables. I probably wasn't eating enough fruit. And people like to demonize fruit, which it's not. It's so nutritious for you. And I love fruit.
Because people say that it has too much sugar, or how do they demonize fruit? I
Yeah.
haven't heard this.
That's exactly what it is. A lot of people are like, oh, I'm not going to eat a banana because it's super high in sugar. But you have a banana that has fiber in it, it has a ton of nutrients and sugar, but it's natural sugar and it's combined together the way that nature intended. So it's not bad for you. But people don't realize that. They just think sugar, sugar. And like when it comes to fruit, it's really
Yeah.
not. There's just so much skewed information out there, which is unfortunate.
I know for me and my partner, like when we were navigating his transitioning into, yeah, learning about foods that heal the body, it was way before, we're talking about over 10 years ago for me. It was before all of this information. Like literally, I didn't know what quinoa was. And it was hard to find. Like I had to go to the hippie grocery stores to get those items. Kale was not a thing then. And all of these super greens. It's been really beautiful to see how much accessible these foods are now and a little bit more mainstream. But if you don't live in a major city, I still feel like it's really difficult or really expensive to get. So for people who are maybe their brain is starting to be like, oh, whatever, that's not for me, like I'm fine. Do you have any information to share on how, even if maybe right now you're fine, like how that can still affect you and maybe they're not even realizing it, but what it's doing to their body, to their health, to their mental health?
Yeah. So I know that I had the reason to switch everything because of the Crohn's, but for anybody that's just, no, I'm okay. I think I'm healthy. I think that's an opportunity for you to really look into what you're actually eating. And for a lot of people that are like, no, I can't afford to eat healthier, it's really not that hard. Like you can do frozen vegetables and they're very cheap. And you can also eat seasonally and it's also cheaper that way. Like you're not going to have peaches in the winter. That's what I mean by seasonally. It's going to be more expensive to get a peach in the winter because it has to come from somewhere. I always like to say that you just have to go back to the basics. It's just so simple to get frozen vegetables. You can get anything that's seasonal, like usually just available in the grocery store, especially if you're not in a really populated area and you might not have fancy grocery stores, but you don't really even need fancy grocery stores. That's usually the products that are more packaged, but they could be on the healthier side. But you can get fruits and vegetables everywhere. So it's really not that difficult.
Once you start learning about, I had to decide to stop watching the documentaries about our food system because literally it like gives me panic attacks. I know enough to know that the foods that were sold are not foods and that they put so many chemicals into it to make them addictive, and it is infuriating. I get into so many arguments with my parents around this. Oh, because I see what they're eating. They're so addicted to soda and all it is like packaged foods. And it's just heartbreaking because I remember when growing up, like my parents were recent immigrants from Mexico. They were poor. Literally, we just had to eat beans and rice, and we would eat like squash, and meat was rare because it was so much more expensive. And I'm not saying that our diet was perfect. There was a time when they finally got a Costco card that then we got like frozen corn dogs. And then I think that's when things went bad. But before that, it was Whole Foods. And it's been really painful for me to witness this transition and just seeing their health decline, seeing their weight increase. My parents are also the caretakers of my sister's children. And I've gotten in fights with my mom about what she gives my little nephew. Like, why are you giving him toast with like caramel in Spanish is like dulce de leche? Like, it's basically just sugar, right? For breakfast. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, this poor kid, like he's going to get diabetes because he's being given all of this sugar, all this white and brown food. And it brings me so much anxiety. I'll be completely transparent. And one of the reasons why I decided not to go into being a nutritionist is because I was so excited to learn on this information and to making the changes for myself and my life and seeing the positive results. And when I would share it with my family, it would be put down. It would be dismissed. And when I would talk to other people, I felt the same way. I don't know why, but it seems like it is such an uphill battle when it comes to trying, not that I'm trying to, yeah, actually I am. I'm trying to change the way that they eat because I don't want them to be constantly inflamed and having all of these health issues that they do not associate with what they're eating because their doctors don't communicate that. What do you have to say about that?
Yeah. I know when I first started all of my health transformation, I was definitely a pusher towards my family. I'm like, "You should be eating this because I'm eating this," and I really had to take a huge step back on that because you really can only meet people where they
Yeah.
are, like you've said that before, and I really had to just understand that they might learn, they might not, but so far they have been learning just very slowly. So, plus, I mean, problem with a lot of people is that they live to eat. Like, see the nutrition, they're not looking for any of that. They're just like, oh, this tastes good. I want to eat that. And that's where basically all these flavor scientists, because that's what's actually a thing, they come up with things to make you addicted to the food. And I think that's like the worst part about all those packaged products. You eat just one because they make it so you can't.
Yeah.
So it's really not even your own fault when you can't get off of these products because you're addicted to them and like you don't even realize. But unless you start looking into the actual ingredients, you're gonna find a lot of crap. And like that's basically what I started doing. I look into everything that I eat. Sound overwhelming, but transformative, and it's you feel more powerful and more in control of your own health because that's what I felt like before. Like I felt like I didn't have any power or control over my health. And I want to be that way anymore. And now I feel confidence, like even in just that sense, because I used to be like, nah, it's fine. I'll just eat it. Like it's fine. But now I'm just so confident in what I will and won't eat that I have no problem if someone's like, well, why won't you? I'm like, because that's not to my standards. And I'm
Ooh, I
just,
like that
it's,
response.
it's just so much more empowering. Like a lot more people were aware of how much power they really do have. And if we don't buy it, they won't make it.
Mhm.
Like that's one of the biggest things. It all starts with
Yeah.
us. Like if we buy it, they're not going to make it. And then they'll make something healthier because that's what we demand.
One of the things that a habit that I picked up while doing the nutrition classes is I read labels. There isn't one item that I purchase without reading the label. And basically, if it has a running list of things that I have no idea what it is, I won't buy it. It's really shocking when you start to do that. When you read the label of a peanut butter jar and it has more than just peanuts and salt. It has sugar in it too, in peanut butter. Ketchup has
Yeah.
sugar. Basically, most everything. Coloring, all of that. So, how does I know I keep bringing up sugar because sugar is just, it's the devil.
The
It's the
devil.
devil. So, Nicole is going to be leading a workshop in my membership, The Collective, this week on November 8th. And she's going to be talking about how foods can contribute to anxiety and depression and just not feeling well mentally and emotionally. So, if you want to learn more, I encourage you to sign up for that workshop. She's going to give us a lot of information around that. But why don't you give us a little teaser around that? Why is sugar so bad? Even like it's natural. It comes from sugar cane.
Yeah. So the first problem with sugar is how processed it is. And because it's processed, our bodies don't really know how to handle it. So, on the anxiety part of it, our brain and gut are actually connected. And they send signals back and forth all the time. And if you weren't aware, there's actually more signals coming from your gut to your brain than there are from your brain to your gut. And that is where sugar likes to be mysterious.
Yeah.
And if you're eating a lot of sugar, you're really disrupting your gut microbiome. And that is what's going to start sending signals to your brain that are just confused because you're basically confusing everything in your system and it's all sending it right back to your brain. So it's just the way that sugar is processed in our bodies in the mass amounts that we get these days, which is, I still don't even agree with the lines for how much sugar you should have in a day. I still think it's too high, but just the way that our bodies process it is it's not in any way beneficial to our bodies at all.
Yeah, and holidays are coming up where I feel like people just tell themselves like, "It's the holidays, I'm gonna eat whatever." There's all these parties and drinks and all of that. So, do you have any suggestion or tips? How do you navigate the holidays? Do you show up with your own platter of amazing deliciousness, veggies?
First changed my diet, I actually did. I would bring my own kind of dessert that I made myself, and I usually use honey because honey is nutritious and it's better for you. It's still a sugar, but it's better. And I used to bring my own desserts. But the holidays these days, I am really good. This is just from all my years of knowing how bad it is for you. I've just gotten really good at kind of eating a lot of sugar during the holidays. But I know that on the days that sometimes it's not really that avoidable and like really want some, it's really helpful if you just make sure you don't eat it alone.
Mm.
Like if you eat a cupcake, don't just eat a cupcake. Have dinner, make sure you have a protein, fat, fiber in your dinner, and then have the cupcake. Because this way you're not spiking your blood sugars and it's going to process better in your body. And there's a really big difference if you just are eating all the sugar as opposed to balancing it out and having more protein and all those things that actually slow the spike
That's a really
for your
great
sugar.
tip. I like that. Thank you. Going back to, I love you talking about the gut and brain connection and how they're constantly communicating. Can you share some maybe symptoms that people might have that's an indicator that perhaps there's an imbalance in their gut or something for folks to keep an eye out for?
Yeah. So, one of the big things I like to point out is acne. Like, acne is it all starts in your gut. And a lot of people don't realize that. Like, the best facial care routine in the world and still have pimples if your gut isn't balanced, like if your microbiome isn't balanced. And another symptom is bloating. Like, that is not normal. A lot of people have it and it's very common, but it's not normal. Like, it's your body telling you that there's something off. And reason as a society, we've normalized a lot of things. And once you start looking into a lot of it, you realize that it's just common, but not normal. And that's what we're trying to fix here.
I definitely, for years now, have struggled with bloating and IBS, and I have gotten so many tests. I've done the stool test, the everything, gone to a GI doctor, and they just keep telling me that I'm fine. And also that basically that IBS is normal. Like, here's some antibiotics, like take it. I'm like, that doesn't feel right. When you have it chronically, you do get to a point where you forget that there was a time in your life where you didn't have the bloating, where you didn't have to constantly go to the bathroom, where you didn't have the acne or the rosacea or whatever other symptoms you have. And because you don't have the support from the medical system, the Western medical system, like part of you feels like giving up because you're trying different things and it's just not working. And so I'm so grateful that people like you are there to coach folks because we do need the guidance. Like, it's such a lonely road when you are healing your health in a more holistic way because the pharmaceutical company, because doctors, like our whole medical system, it's not set up for you to be thriving, for you to be healthy. People make money off of us being sick. And so also
Yeah.
think about that next time you're purchasing products. And I'm not talking about restrictions. You have to also be a human. And when there is so much restriction, it can then swing people to the other way. And so try to find a balance that works for you. As an intuitive, I'm already like tapping into the energy of all of you listening to this episode. And I'm hearing, okay, yeah, Nicole, Anna, that's all great. Like, yes, eat your vegetables, eat whole foods, but I just don't have the time. Like, I'm so busy. I'm already so overwhelmed. Maybe you're a single mom. Maybe you're just have kids. Cooking feels like a luxury for so many people now. It's something that a lot of people just don't do. So, do you have any suggestions on how to go around that?
I do. I to ask this question. How much of your time are you actually spending doing things? Because a lot of people are like, I'm so busy, but I'm like, what are you really busy with? How much time are you spending on social media that you could be preparing dinner? And I have to say, I am very lazy when it comes to making dinners and basically anything, especially lunch, because I sometimes prepare for lunch, sometimes I don't. But I still refuse to eat anything out because I just trust my own. I mean, of course, I trust my own cooking because I made it myself. I know what's in it. But if you're strapped for time, I think you need to really evaluate what you're doing with your time. But also, like I said before, frozen vegetables are one of the easiest things that I eat that's healthy and they're good for you. Like they're actually frozen at peak ripeness. So they're perfect and you just cook them. So I think that you can be lazy healthy, as I like to say, and it doesn't really have to be elaborate. And if you do have time on like kind of day that you might randomly have more time than normal, then you can make more elaborate meals if that's what you're into. I haven't really cared for that, so that's why I don't mind my super easy lazy meals. But like if you have the time, you make the nice meals. But if you don't have the time, just do frozen vegetables, cook some meat real quick. It's not that hard. I mean, I personally don't think it's that hard. Just like cook chicken on the stove in like minutes, 20 minutes, however fast your chicken can cook if it's thin. So I say that I like to evaluate where I'm really spending my time.
I think that's a really great suggestion because, yeah, the default answer is I'm too busy for everything, right? Like I hear it with my clients too, or potential clients wanting to work with me. I want to, but I just don't have the time. And yeah, I think it's really helpful to get clarity on how it is that you're spending your time, maybe logging, looking at your calendar and seeing how much time we're wasting on so many different things. And it's all about what we put energy into, right? That's
Mhm.
going to unfold for us. So if right now you're not dedicating time to your physical health, to eating better, but deep down inside that it would be helpful, what if you just shifted some of the time that you are spending elsewhere into that? And not
Mhm.
only you're going to be in control of what you're eating, but you're also going to feel better because you're actually
Yeah.
giving your body nutrition. Our bodies are so starved of nutrition because what we eat, for the most part, really isn't food. It's just all these like chemical compounds put together. As she said earlier, like they have food taste scientists,
Yes, food scientists.
who-
Flavor science. Wait, I think
flavor
it's I
scientists.
want to say it's flavor
Yeah,
scientists.
who like their job is to mimic the flavors of what real foods would taste like. And it's a process. Like once you decide to eat better to support your whole health and well being, you also have to go through a detox process. And I think that is really difficult. We don't realize how addicted we are to certain foods, and that's another reason why y'all need Nicole in your life to help guide you as you're going through that detox. Even for me, like when I do certain cleanses to help give my gut a break. And again, I eat mainly whole foods, but sometimes I catch myself when I'm really stressed out or short on time because I'm constantly working that I'll just eat whatever. And I shared with you, Nicole, privately, I have caught myself that sometimes I do it almost as like punishment because I have the information and I know that this is not good for me. But you know what? I'm going to go eat that fast food burger because my inner child wants it, or my inner rebellious teen wants to be like, F you, I don't care. Let me just shove this down my throat.
Going off of
Yeah.
that, I find that when you learn what's really in these foods and you educating yourself on what's in these foods, like all of that repetition has really helped me not want fast food because I know what is in it and it actually kind of makes me like gag a little because
Do you have some stats around that? I know you've shared on Instagram, like, the pumpkin latte thing, like, horrifying what's in it. Do you happen to know or just anything that maybe people would be surprised to learn?
going off of the fast food, people are always like, oh, I don't eat fast food, but I'll have Chick-fil-A every once in a while because it's healthier. Chick-fil-A is just as bad as all of them. They use MSG in all of their food too. There's a ton of chemicals. It's just there's
It's
really
just
no
chicken.
healthy fast food. It's not just chicken.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I understand it can be hard, but I have to say that what has helped me a ton is knowing what's in it and knowing what it does to you that's in it because that just grosses me out, a lot of
And
it.
let's be real, everything's hard. Like, life is hard. We gotta just pick our hard. And
Mhm.
again, if you're in a place right now in your life where you're like, "I'm fine, I don't need any support, like, I'm healthy, I'm thin, whatever, I'm active." But unfortunately, if you're truly not eating whole foods, it catches up. It just manifests in other ways, whether it's through the skin issues that Nicole was talking about, the bloating, the constipation. I mean, let's talk about that too.
Yeah, that's a big one. Like, people don't realize how important it is to move your bowels every day, once a day, 1 to 3 times a day, and a lot of people I know that once upon a time I don't actually, it might still be accurate not accurate, it might still be advice that doctors says, "If you're pooping, like, 1 to 3 days, then you're fine." I'm like,
A
"No,
week,
not at
right?
all. You should be going every
Yeah,
day."
wild.
Yeah. I don't know, just a lot of outdated advice still,
Yeah, because
unfortunately.
imagine all of those toxins sustain in your body and then potentially,
Mhm.
leaking somewhere else, like, it's
Yeah.
gnarly. Yeah.
It is.
Make sure y'all poop. Get a potty squatty. I love my potty squatty.
Oh, I love it. Yeah, I have
Best
one.
method. Do you have any other, like, just tangible things, suggestions that people can do to start cleaning their what they're eating? Like, what's one thing that you would say if you start to minimize consuming this, you're off to a really strong start?
Sugar. Basically, I know it's the hardest one to get off of, but that is just the worst one. It just is not good.
So, folks, if you're going to Starbucks and you're not just consuming like a black coffee,
Yeah, there's a ton of sugar in their drinks. And Dunkin' Donuts is worse. If you're gonna pick one of them, do Starbucks, not Dunkin' Donuts.
oh gosh, pick an evil. Nicole, any last words that you have for our listeners on?
Yeah, so I did wanna mention back to ingredients on products. I always say the nutrition facts on the back of a product are completely useless. I never look at that. It's not accurate. It's not even precise. Like they can be off by I'm pretty sure it's 2 to 3%, which actually is a lot when you do the math. So, if you're going to start looking at the back of products, you should really be looking at the ingredients. And if you don't know what it is, it's probably man-made and not good for
Yeah,
you.
such a great tip. Let's see, my takeaways from our conversation are obviously try to minimize your sugar consumption because it's in everything, folks. Start reading your labels, the ingredients, focus on that, and try to consume or purchase ingredients that have a minimal amount of ingredients and with words that you understand. If you're having a hard time pronouncing it, then maybe you want to skip it. And try as much as you can to eat whole foods. Nicole's a huge fan of frozen veggies and fruits. That's a really accessible way that you can start to implement more nutrition into your diet. I also, at a certain point, would meal plan. And so that's something that, like on the weekend, on Sundays, I would make together my list. I would prep some stuff so that during the week it was easier for me to make a meal. So I found that like setting myself up for success for the week, especially if I felt that it
Yes.
was busy. And lastly, be around other folks like Nicole. Y'all need to follow her, first of all, on Instagram. I love her content. Even though I already know so much about nutrition, I feel like every single day I learn something new from you. So thank you, Nicole, for just sharing really important information and just helping us to feel more empowered about the choices that we make in regards to what we put in our body, because it makes all of the difference.
Yes, it really does. It really does.
Thank you so much, Nicole, for sharing your knowledge with us and your story of how you healed yourself through eating foods that are real and whole. And I just feel like it gives us hope for those of us who are struggling with health issues, that there is another way to go about it, that we're not encouraging people not to go to the doctor or to, there's a place for that too. But
Mhm.
be a devil's advocate, do your own research and see, are there other ways that I can support my body to heal? Because our body is such a powerful, beautiful, intelligent thing that it knows how to heal itself. It knows how to go back to this state of thriving and being well if we just give it what it needs. So drink your water. I'm a huge fan of drinking water without any sugar, and eat your veggies. All right, folks. Thanks for listening to this episode of Breathe More, and we'll be back next week.